Yo, podcasters, check it. We here to thrill. Talking 80s flicks, and ain't gonna drink our fill. Got our brews ice cold, turn the volume up. From Top Gun to Ghostbusters, never get enough. Collaborate and listen to our reminiscing. Back to the Future and the Goonies crew. Pop the top, sit back, got a beer or two. Rock those big hairstyles and neon light craze. 80s tunes in the mix, rocking all our days. Collaborate and listen to our reminiscing.
All right, welcome everybody. Collaborate and listen, episode 4. Here we are, Charlie and George. George, what we got going on today?
A few things. We're going to be drinking a few beers that you brought back from Tokyo. Charlie actually has a little taste test planned for us,
You game.
and we're going to be discussing The Princess Bride.
The long-awaited discussion.
Charlie
of Princess
finally
Bride.
saw the movie, and I, of course, watched it again. My favorite
You
movie
watched
of
it
all
again?
time. Yeah, my favorite movie of all time. But as we mentioned the last time, Charlie is coming to my house, so I, of course, pre-gamed, and
We talked last
yeah,
time too.
yeah.
That we almost agreed not to pregame.
yeah, and I can't help it, but I'm like waiting like an hour before Charlie gets here, so I pre-gamed, and we're gonna do our first commercial. So you can get this whiskey Busker at Tamura's, $25. Very smooth whiskey, and that was my pre-game today. I probably had like a double, but
All right.
We'll
Tomorrow's
just call it
here
one.
in Hawaii, in case anybody's listening not from Hawaii.
Right,
Here is Hawaii.
for our international listeners, Tamura's is in Hawaii.
few locations here.
They have one in Maui, and then there's several on Oahu.
I think there's a couple on Maui. even.
Oh, really?
Maybe,
Yeah,
yeah.
I know at least one. So shout out to Tamu. He likes to punish us with whiskey when we're drinking with him. But moving on. So
All right, very good.
a few other things. We never really discussed our inspiration to doing this podcast, and Charlie and I, like we said before, we were talking about this for over a year, and one of the things that we had listened to in the past, we both listened to, is a podcast called What School You Went. That's hosted by Ron Mizutani, and it's actually like a PBS production, but they do like a lot of things from the origin of the Manapua Man to the most haunted schools in Hawaii, which actually Charlie can
Yeah.
profess to some of these.
Glenn Grant tour used to come through Stevenson Middle School. Hello to all my friends from Stevenson, my former co-workers. But yeah, What School You Went? Such a catchy name for a podcast. I mean, that drew me in because here in Hawaii, talking about Hawaii, that's what we say. That's how we introduce ourselves to
Yeah.
people.
It's like our or it's like our search for commonality. You know, it's like whenever you meet somebody new, first thing you ask is like what school you went, and then of course it's normally followed up with what year you grad. But but
and then you know my cousin.
Or yeah.
Oh, they went to this school. But yeah, if you're not from Hawaii and then you say what school you went or what school did you attend, it's usually college, or it's not normally high school. So in Hawaii, what school you went, we're talking about what high school you attended.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, what school you went?
I went to Kalani High School, class of '90.
Yeah.
And what school you went?
Marino High School, class of '89.
All right. So Charlie's older than I am.
Go Spartans. All right. Now, we'll talk a little bit more. There's some other podcasts and some other inspirations that we had, but you pre-gamed. I did not, so I'm thirsty. Let's get to my favorite part of the show, which is the drinking part. So
you can go ahead and grab that. So the last episode, we had a lot of feedback from people who commented they liked the filter that we removed, so you could really hear the cracking of the beer. And again, Charlie just went to Tokyo, so he brought back several beers.
We got 3 different beers. I got these from Don Quixote. We were there shopping for omiyage, buying all kinds of stuff, and I brought some omiyage for us. George, this is your omiyage.
Awesome. Don Quixote is like the Trader Joe's of Japan. So
So
If
I
you-
don't
if
even
you're there.
know. Well, it's again all in Japanese, but there are some English words like IPA,
right,
pale ale,
right,
Hefeweizen.
right.
I don't even know how to do that in a Japanese
Yeah,
accent.
so I can read some of the hiragana, but I don't know what I'm reading. So we'll just move on. With
Yeah,
the,
we'll just know this is from Japan, and so we're gonna do a taste test. So the game that we're gonna do today, similar to last time, we never had any of these beers before. So it's not like, oh, I like this one better, or for sure I can tell this one from the other. But we got 3 distinct flavor or 3 different types of beers, right? So the Hefeweizen, a pale ale, and an IPA. And so what I'm saying, I'm very confident in this one today, is that I can tell the difference between these 3 styles of beers. I know that I've talked to some other people, and this is a beer is beer, and I can't even tell the difference. You drink all those different ones, and they all taste the same to me. They just taste like beer. Just like when I drink wine, they all kind of taste the same to me. So we're gonna see if we can tell the difference. So I'll go first this one. So George is gonna pour 3 different beers into cups, and then I will guess which one is the Hefeweizen, which one is the pale ale, and which one is the IPA. You can use it, and then we have our same tasting cups. All right, and I will turn away, or
these cups are also Yeti. If Yeti is looking for a
sponsors.
sponsorship,
We love Yeti. We
yeah,
love the
we
way
love
that it
Yeti.
keeps the beer cold for 10 seconds
coolers too.
before we drink it. Oh, you guys! I can't help but say, oh, every
I
time.
don't know.
That
After
sound.
listening to the last episode, every time I heard the beer crack, it just made me want to drink some more. But Charlie's gonna
pour it by the microphone. Give them a little.
I
sound. I got a request. I said, hey, when you guys are pouring the beer, it seems there's like dead air, and it doesn't sound like you guys are doing anything. But if you put the beer close to the microphone, at least for the listeners, they'd be able to tell that it's not just dead air. Also, I guess me talking during this time is not dead air either.
Well, I also got to remember what I pour into what.
Yep. Is it going to be in the same order that it's on the table? Mix it up. Colors. I'll check out maybe some. The last time we did it, I remember I poured it in certain color cups so that I could remember what.
Yep, and knowing
what order
that
it was.
I am doing it the opposite.
In fact, I remember now going back to the challenge. You referenced Princess Bride because wasn't it at that point when we were doing the challenge that
You're
you
good.
referenced? Okay,
I think it was where I failed miserably, but
where you failed and you're talking about.
I think I referred to iocane powder.
Yes.
Which,
Yeah. All right. Very. Ooh, see if I can tell just from the smell.
Don't move it around too much. I'm gonna forget what I did.
No, they're in the right order. Okay. Oh. Okay, I blew one first. I think that's the Hefeweizen, but I'm not sure. Red cup, pretty strong hoppy flavor. I think that's the IPA, but it might be the pale ale. This also might be the IPA or the pale ale. Okay, so the first cup, the blue, the Hefeweizen, that does taste different. So I commit to the blue cup Hefeweizen. These two are pretty similar. I mean, they're both ales and they're both pale. What's the alcohol percentage on these?
The pale ale is 6%, and the IPA is 6.5.
See, also very similar.
And the Hefeweizen is 5.5.
Oh my goodness, I was so confident. Now I am not as confident. Okay, confirm if the blue cup was Hefeweizen.
Final answer?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Whew. So
You got the Hefeweizen.
now these are very similar. They're and we'll do quaffable scales later. These two are also very quaffable, very high on the quaffable.
We're gonna
scale.
get to this in a minute when we start talking about the movie. But right now, Charlie is playing a mental game with me, trying to see if I'll reveal which one is which, and if I actually match the color to the can, or
So,
what
what
I'll
you're
give
saying-
away.
So if you poured it in the white cup, you're thinking that I wouldn't think that it's matched, but it is matching.
But
So
also, you know that I've been educated, so
okay, I am gonna drink some more. I'm pretty sure that it's tasting more and more alike. Okay. This is almost a guess, but when I first drank this one, I thought this was a little heavier. I'll go with the second cup, the red cup, the IPA, and then the white cup is the pale ale.
final answer
Final answer.
wrong.
Oh man.
So the white cup is the pale ale. Oh, excuse me. The white cup
Okay.
is the IPA,
See, now you're doing it to me.
and the red cup is the pale ale. But
Okay,
you had
I did, I
you
got
had
that
the
wrong
Hefeweizen right,
from the start.
Yeah. which is pretty good because you hadn't even tasted the other two yet.
Yeah, I could
But yeah.
confirm that. Okay, let's get some
Okay. So new
new order.
cups, new colors, and I will cover my eyes.
All right, you guys can all
And
see which one's going
Just
where.
know that I've spent the last 3 years developing a resistance to iocane powder. So it doesn't matter which one has the
Okay,
poison
this
in
one
it.
is, yeah, they can see. Oh, hear that in the microphone.
You can hear that here.
And this is the last one.
Oh,
All right, mix it up. Hang on. Okay, we got that.
okay. I'm not going to look at the cans because you probably mixed it up for a reason.
Or did I?
Or,
Well,
or
they
you
can't-
didn't.
They
So
they can't. Here, we'll give a little.
this is what we're looking at here. And it's probably not in alignment. But
So I did show the camera which one I was for. I don't see if they remember. They could also rewind it, I guess, if you weren't sure. George taking his first sip for the listeners there. See how that's.
I think, I could be wrong, but I think that's the Hefeweizen.
I really thought that this would be so easy, that the IPA would be so much more flavorful. Like it would just, like the hops would be kicking.
This might be the Hefeweizen.
No,
All
we
three
got-
might taste
we
like
got two.
Hefeweizen. It'll be just like the last taste test.
So I'll tell a little story about that. So my dad listened to a little bit of the episode where we did the taste test, and he laughed and he said, "Oh, we used to do that when we were younger." And he said they would pour. They tell people it's 3 different beers, and then they put all Miller Lite in all the cups, and then
That's
they say,
dirty.
"Oh, which one is better?" And they say, "Oh, this one's definitely better." I said, "Oh." So I did not. You saw. I did not pour the same beer into all 3. I mean, yeah. See, it's
I think this is the IPA, this is the Pale Ale, and this is the Hefeweizen.
locking in.
Lock it in.
Final answer. You are correct.
Oh,
I kept
I was
them-
waiting for you to
I
say
did-
all 3 wrong again.
all 3. I kept it. I did keep them in the same order so that I could remember. And we'll change that angle back up a little. All right. Good job. Now, the pale ale, when you thought Hefeweizen at first, like just kind of, it does. I know Hefeweizen's a wheat beer, similar in like I guess a taste.
I guess flavor wise,
I don't mind drinking Hefeweizens.
Yeah.
You know, like if I'm at a bar, if they got IPAs, I'm usually IPA. But yeah, I'm a fan of Hefeweizens as well. They're similar, but very yeah. After you drank the Hefeweizen, though, you get like, okay, that was definitely you can
Yeah.
tell the
I think I
difference.
confirmed it. Once I tried the other two, I could confirm.
And then the IPAs, you thought like this is for sure. Like what for me, I had a hard time. So what for you? What was
I
the
wasn't positive, but it did taste like the pale ale had a little bit less hops. The hops is what actually draws me more to hazies and to the IPA.
okay now?
I mean, I don't know, the difference between a pale ale and an IPA is what, India?
Where where they were where the ships were going?
Which route they're going on?
Yeah, we'll have to again look up and do a little bit more research
Yeah.
on the difference. We didn't do that. The difference between what a pale ale is. I know that the Indian pale ales are supposed to be higher in alcohol content, and it is, and using different hops that last longer than the pale ales. But not sure exactly what makes a pale ale. Or so yeah, we'll have to do a little bit more research on that. Now we didn't do the quaffable scales, and so I don't know. What do you think of the different beers? We'll start with the Hefeweizen since that one was very different. Other Hefeweizens that you might be familiar with, Blue Moon is probably the most popular, most common in the bars to drink. It's a wheat beer,
Belgian
Belgian.
wheat. Yep.
So as far as yeah, how quaffable is it for you?
I would say all three are pretty similar. I mean,
Yeah, I could probably rate them.
It's-
Well, no. Go ahead.
I would say maybe like a 7.5 for the pale ale and the Hefeweizen, and maybe an 8 for the IPA. There's just a little bit more flavor with the IPA, and I mean that's just my opinion in general. IPAs have a little bit more flavor. We tend to drink like Big Wave, or I mean like certain things. I think to me it just tastes like a heavier lager.
Right.
Whereas IPAs, or especially hazies, have a lot more of that hoppy flavor, and I think that kind of distinguishes the taste wise. Like for me, I mean, really, beer, I'll drink whatever.
We said never
Yeah.
met a beer didn't
Yeah.
never met a beer he didn't drink.
Yeah.
So for me, I can't rate the pale ale and the IPA any differently because I got them wrong. They tasted very similar to me. I'll give them both 7s on the quaffable scale. So good, very very quaffable, drinkable beers. The Hefeweizen, not as much of a Hefeweizen fan. As far as Hefeweizens goes, pretty good, but overall rating, I'll go a little bit lower, 6.5. All still pretty good. There's
I think on the last episode we were drinking a lot of Sierra Nevada too, and the Sierra Nevada did have a higher, even the Tokyo Ale that one, the ones you had before did have a higher
yeah, and
alcohol. Yeah.
and we do so. Tokyo Ale Works again. Shout out to those guys at Tokyo Ale Works. So every episode we've had beer from Tokyo Ale Works. I don't have. We just came back, and this will be the last of what I have in my fridge. So unless we go to Tokyo again soon, I don't think we're gonna get.
Or
any more
unless they
Tokyo.
want to send it to us.
Well, what's up, guys at
Well,
Tokyo
yeah.
Ale Works? So I did visit them, and I mentioned, hey, we've been showcasing your beer, and they were happy to hear that, and maybe giving us a listen. So if you guys are, yeah, hopefully we'll get a comment from you guys or something, or if not, next time we're in Tokyo, go visit for sure. But we do have a few more Tokyo Ale Works different. I tried to get different ones. I think they're all different from what we got what we've had before. Oh, I did ask if you remember on the last episode we had a darker beer and it was
That actually caught us
Schwar-
off guard. Yeah.
Yeah, the Schwarzbier,
Right.
and we're like, maybe the
Maybe the
Schwarzbier.
Schwarzbier.
And we're like, what's a Schwarzbier? And so I didn't look it up. So I drank the rest of the Hefeweizen. Choose one, finish the rest. So I asked them. I said, hey, we had a Schwarzbier. Really enjoyed it. And what is it? And they just said it's a dark, like a brown ale, which I believe a stout
It's just like a stout. Yeah.
is a dark ale. So it was, but they didn't call it a stout. They called it a Schwarzbier. So maybe not quite a stout, but some kind of a dark ale. And that was a surprise. Surprised that it was dark, and then surprised that it tasted well too. Tasted well, tasted good. You do well, you don't taste well. If I taste well, that just means I'm able to taste things, right?
I wouldn't know if you taste well.
Yeah. All right, that's a. We're gonna have to edit.
I was pre-gaming quite a bit before this.
We're gonna have to edit that out.
I wasn't pre-gaming that much. I'm not gonna know what Charlie tastes like. So.
We're definitely editing that out. All right. Well, a little bit more about the podcast. Well, guys, so what school you went? That was a common one. What are some other podcasts that you like to listen to?
I listen to a few. I mean, there's a bunch that actually do movie reviews. So one is How Did This Get Made? To a few people, and to them it's like bad movies, and they're saying, how did this get made? There's also another one called Confused Breakfast. Actually, both of them. Shout out to my friend Mark. He's the one that turned me on to these two podcasts. And
Confused Breakfast.
Confused Breakfast.
What is, I never.
They also do movie reviews. I was just listening to one that they were doing on Beetlejuice. So they actually they do reviews for movies back similar to what we're doing. A little bit further back, 80s and 90s. And it's like three guys. I mean, they're actually, I don't think they're known people, whereas the difference with How Did This Get Made, it's a few people that have actually been in movies, like Paul Scheer, Jason Mantzoukas, and Diane Raphael. God, I can't remember her last name, but or if maybe that is her last name, but she's married to Paul Scheer, and all three of them have been in movies, but they're actually established comedians, established writers, and actors. So, you know, the difference. Some people, when they start podcasts, they already have the fame, and they're just trying to build on their brand. We're building everything from the ground up.
Yeah, I was when we started talking about just the different podcasts, and I just started thinking, like, what if somebody else had this conversation someday, and they're like, oh, it's that collaborate and listen, and that's what inspired me to start something. Hopefully we do. Hopefully people are enjoying this, and down the road, I mean, it gets to a point where, yeah, this inspires someone else to start a podcast or to drink beer.
Yeah. I mean, we're really just two ordinary guys, got ordinary jobs, like to drink beer. We like to talk about it. We like to talk about different kinds of things, but I mean, that was kind of how we got started.
Well, we did. Yeah, we wanted to give the viewers and listeners just a little bit of background on
how we got started.
What
inspired us.
Some of the things that we like, because we did talk about it before that. I mean, it's really we said we're gonna get here and drink beer, hang out, just get to hang out. And
worst case scenario, we're drinking beer,
hanging out. So, but yeah, listening to the different podcasts, some of the ones that I've been listening to recently, Smartless. Somebody turned me on to Smartless. Jason Bateman. Three well-known actors, and then they take turns bringing in special guests. Like they're very connected in Hollywood, so then they bring in one person kind of preps the interview. They have all the questions for their guests that they're bringing in. The other two don't know who's coming in, and every episode they talk with a special guest. Very funny. They're super sarcastic with each other. That's a good one.
Jason Bateman, star of Teen Wolf. I think we might be doing that movie at some point.
So Michael J. Fox was.
Oh, Michael J. Fox. Excuse me, Michael J. Fox.
Is Jason Bateman
Teen Wolf.
also in Teen Wolf?
No, I'm trying
Was
to
there
think
like
now.
another teen? Because so Jason
Bateman's
well,
first movie.
Ozark is what he's known for now. But
More
back,
recently,
but
yeah.
back from the 80s. I mean, he's also in like Horrible Bosses, so like more recent stuff. But he's been around for a long time. He's been in movies from the 80s, I would say.
I know he's Justine Bateman's brother.
And where's Justine Bateman from?
She was in Family Ties.
Family Ties, that's right. She didn't do much other than Family Ties. Yeah, like that's all I.
She was in a few.
Who was with Michael J. Fox? Oh, we got like connection.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
Teen Wolf. We brought it all back.
Nice save, because I totally bombed on that. Justin Bateman, he was in something else.
Jason
it was like, I mean, Jason Bateman.
we better get to Princess Bride. I don't know how long.
Did I
this
mention Buster at Tamura's $25 a bottle?
Okay, I am gonna get to a Japanese beer now. How's your? We'll put these on the side.
I think I'm down to the.
We do have our regular clear drinking cups here. Okay, so again, Tokyo Ale Works from our friends out in Tokyo. This is Haze is Dead. Does that sound familiar? I don't think we did Haze is Dead.
Nope.
It is 7% New England IPA. Hazy IPAs, also known as New England IPAs. The first hazy IPA by Tokyo Ale Works, known for making clear beer, using some chip malt from Germany to create a light haze before unloading a huge amount of Mosaic, Galaxy, and Citra hops for a juicy but only slightly hazy IPA. Well, thank you, Tokyo Ale Works, for that synopsis of the beer. We'll get to the synopsis of the movie shortly. Oh, I didn't open that by the speaker here.
I could hear
by
it.
the speaker. Or by the microphone stuff. Oh, I hope that sounds good.
So speaking of editing, our previous 3 episodes, we have successfully launched them without any editing. This episode might need some editing, but Charlie will take care of that.
I did edit the when you went to the bathroom.
Oh yeah,
I did edit that one a little bit. Cheers. Oh, this one smells hazy. It is light and doesn't look very hazy. That's right.
What is
like
the ABV?
7%.
7%.
Yeah, good job, Tokyo
That's
Ale
good,
Works.
yep. Considering this was their first one, they built on it.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I like it.
The bitterness is there. It doesn't have. It doesn't look very hazy. It doesn't have a real like on the sweeter side
It doesn't look like
it's not-
my common descriptor is resort pineapple juice. It
No.
doesn't look like that. But
Okay,
it is a little on the bitter side.
It is. Yeah,
For me, to me,
that's how
yeah.
I described it first. Yeah, definitely on the bitter side.
I would probably give it on the quaffable scale 7.5. My norm would probably be an 8 for almost everything, but because it's a little more on the bitter side, I'm gonna give it a 7.5.
Yeah, I'll go with a 7 again. It's not any better than the other beer that we had. I'm enjoying this one about as they were all good. Maybe a 7.5, but I'll stick with a 7 for this one as well. It's kind of leave room for improvement with what's still in the cooler there. So we still have some stuff in the cooler. Now, George, we only have 2 beers left in the cooler, and I know we have like a drink limit on our episodes here. So we better get to our movie review. So it is now time for Be Kind,
Rewind.
Rewind. Well, let's get to The Princess Bride. I know this was anticipated. George mentioned
My favorite movie.
one of his favorites.
Yeah.
What the
This
favorite?
is my favorite. Yeah.
The favorite.
And in doing some research, I'm not the only one. So there are some. It does have it has a cult following. There are people that consider it to be the greatest romance ever made, possibly the greatest movie ever made. And the reason why they say that is because it has everything in it. And by everything, I mean romance, action, um, the scenery. It's a comedy. It basically has every type of and every genre of movie within it, and that's why some people have called it the best movie ever. But I'm sure there's other people that would say like Citizen Kane is like the greatest movie ever. But I personally think that Princess Bride is my favorite movie, and so we'll go through the breakdown. There were several. Like,
Synopsis.
I-
let's
I
start.
don't-
Let's start
yeah.
with. Let's start. I know in the last episode, George, I could give a synopsis right now. So, I printed out the synopsis and then I left that in. It's not here.
Was this the first time you watched the movie?
It is the first time I watched. the
So
movie.
Charlie watched this for the first time. He was texting me while he was watching it, and the first thing I got was Fred Savage. So in the beginning, so basically this movie. So one of the unique things about this movie is that it's a movie, and it's based on a book that is being read to a grandson by the grandfather, and the grandson is Fred Savage. Grandfather is Peter Falk. If any of you are familiar with Columbo, that is probably where his fame is
Oh.
from. So
See,
so
he looked
yeah.
familiar. And
yeah.
I'm like,
So
okay.
Peter Falk, and he really acts very similar to how he does with his character in Columbo in this movie. So Fred Savage, as I did more research, um, he was probably most known for a show called The Wonder Years.
Wonder Years, yeah.
And
Winnie,
the Wonder
Winnie
Years,
Cooper.
yeah, with Winnie Cooper. So, The Wonder Years came out a year after this movie. So,
Oh.
this movie, as we have tried to see if we could figure this out before, but this movie launched Fred Savage's career. So this was his first
Yeah.
real claim to fame.
And it's funny, and almost when I watch the movie and I see Fred Savage, he's all in my for me.
He's already
He's
famous.
already
Yeah,
famous.
yeah.
So I'm thinking like, oh, like he's famous. He's in this movie. They got somebody else, but it might have launched his career to possibly get him Wonder Years and everything else that
Yep.
he's done past that.
Definitely. I mean, everything from Fred Savage to Rob Reiner, who directed it. Rob Reiner,
Huge.
he was huge in the 80s, the 90s, and even in the 2000s. So I did some research on Rob Reiner, and just with the movies that he did in the 80s, just, I mean, like, because we're trying to stick to the 80s. I guarantee we'll probably move into the 90s at some point. But in the 80s, he did Stand By Me.
huge. That was.
I mean, that's, I mean, for our childhood, that's like, that's a huge.
And I don't think people reference Rob Reiner with that movie. That movie on its own, right, has a lot of credentials. But yeah, I did read that about like some of the movies. Yeah, so Stand By Me.
He
also,
did When Harry Met Sally.
I didn't know that either.
And This Is Spinal Tap, which I didn't know he was responsible for This Is Spinal Tap.
You wouldn't think so. That's not.
Turn this up to 11. You know, I mean, like that. There's this. I mean, This Is Spinal Tap is a classic, and the fact I didn't know that Rob Reiner was attached to this as the director, but just in the 80s, This Is Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, and When Harry Met Sally. If his career ended right there, he would be Hall of Fame credible already. But he did like so much more in the 90s and in 2000. I mean, but I mean that's just Rob Reiner. William Goldman who actually wrote this. He wrote the screenplay and he wrote the book. And
Yeah,
if
so
you-
funny that the movie is based on a book, and then I don't know if I wonder if in the book they have a grandfather reading the book, or is it that it's kind of like a tribute to this being a book?
So I didn't read the book, but I know that The Princess Bride was based off of stories, and they said stories from it was another. I forget the guy's name. They mention it in the movie. They say the book is by this person, and it was actually written by William Goldman. And then William Goldman also did the screenplay,
Right.
but he wrote the original book, and this was based off of. So his father was actually from Florin, which is mentioned as one of the places in this is actually where Humperdinck is from. But Florin, a real place. William Goldman's father is from there. These stories are from Florin, and
So before you go on from there, I also read that he wrote the book for his two daughters, and then he asked the daughters, "What do you want me to write a book about?" And one said, "A princess," and the other said, "A bride," and that's how he
got The Princess Bride.
wrote the book, The Princess Bride. So yeah, cool backstory to like just even the book before the movie and how that all worked.
and the fact that the way that they speak about this story, and it's like a grandfather telling the grandson the story, reading the book, and it's actually this whole thing comes from that book.
Yeah.
But so William Goldman wrote it. I actually did some research on him. He wrote Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yeah, I was just thinking. I wonder if he wrote anything else.
And he also wrote Maverick, which came out in the '90s, but it was Maverick was a movie that had Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson was
the
playing
card player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mel Gibson,
The Maverick. Okay.
and
Was that from the 80s? Can we watch that one?
James Gardner. We can watch that. Yeah,
Was
that was from the '90s, but
90s?
still, I mean,
Close enough.
like I said, we'll get into it. So, or actually, if we go back further, James Gardner was his father. So James Gardner was in Maverick. James Gardner was Mel Gibson's father. In the earlier movies, James Gardner was Maverick. But in 1994, William Goldman wrote Maverick, which had both of them in it.
Yeah, never knew that was based off of a book.
Yeah. So anyway, like we said, this starts out with a grandfather reading the story to grandson. Grandson is sick at home. Grandfather's reading him this story. Grandson is complaining because this sounds like it's kissing. Yeah, why is there kissing in this? I thought you said there was going to be like sports and fencing and revenge, and eventually he gets to it. But when the story starts out, it originally starts with Wesley, who is the farm boy, and Buttercup, which so the one thing that I never understood is they never show if Buttercup lives with her father, her parents, like who she lives with.
Who is she in
What
there?
I mean, they obviously own a lot of land because they have a farm boy, and their farm boy is Wesley. So of course, Wesley is in love with Buttercup. Buttercup finds out she's in love with Wesley. He decides he wants to go off and make some money so they can get married and live a happy life. And word gets out that he is killed by a pirate. Fast forward 5 years, Now, Prince Humperdinck has claimed Buttercup as a commoner to be his wife, and they're to be married. And then all of a sudden, so
So she had no choice in that, right? Like this was he's the prince. He's choosing her as his wife and saying she is one of you.
Yep.
And this could be any of you.
Yep.
And you guys are all my
It's basically-
friends.
she won the lottery. Any
And-
one of you could have won it.
It
at
could
this
have
point.
could have been any of you, and he chose her as the fairest of them all to
Yeah.
sort of to say. So she has nothing to do with loving him, but she's also like, well, my guy left, and I got nothing to do, so I guess.
And he
I'm
died.
the-
The
and he died.
word got back that he died. So as far as she knows, he's dead. Wesley's dead.
So at this point, she's okay to marry him, sort of, right? Like they show
They
her
don't
she's-
really get into much about whether if she chose not to marry him, her family would lose their land. Like what would be the consequences if she didn't?
There's
So,
a point
yeah.
in the movie where she says like if I marry you, I'm just gonna kill myself, right? But at this point, they show that okay, he's gonna marry her, and she's like, okay, we're getting married, right?
At that point, she also when she says that, she also knows Wesley's alive at that point.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I won't pretend that I know what's going on. I just
Well, I mean,
that's
because
what I think is
that's
going
some
on.
of the
You just-
things that I think was wrong with the movie was they don't really explain why did she. I mean, like, why did he need to marry? He was obviously his dad was the king. The king was very old. He was about to die, and at some point he was going to become the king. So why did he need to take a queen? They don't really explain that. Maybe they do in the book.
Inconceivable.
It's inconceivable. And they also mention, I mean, so this whole plot for it's very similar to modern day politics, right? So the prince who is eventually going to become the king wants to project that there is going to be a war with Gilder. So they're Florin. He's trying to. He's the one that hired the people to go and kidnap his soon-to-be bride, and they're
Oh,
to
okay,
be killed.
okay.
So that was the whole. That was the whole thing. He hired Vizzini,
That's right.
and Vizzini got Fezzik and Inigo, and they kidnapped Buttercup. So the whole premise behind that.
You're in watching the movie, and if you haven't watched the movie, you can pause right now. You can pause the podcast, go watch the movie, and come back.
It's on Disney Plus.
It's Disney Plus. Go watch it. Like some spoiler alerts, because I remember when I watched. Well, did you pause? Okay. So I mean, it is some spoilers because at this point when I'm watching, I'm thinking that they actually kidnapped her, and I didn't know why. It wasn't clear that they were doing it because the prince
Right. Yeah.
wanted. Yeah,
And they never really say it. Eventually they come out.
Eventually, that's
with-
why
yeah,
spoiler.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the whole. The gist of this whole thing is that the prince wants to start a war. My thinking is so he can tax the people more, but he wants to start a war with Gilder, and they're from Florin, and so this is the country across the sea, and by saying that someone from Gilder has kidnapped his fiance and killed her, now we're going to go to war.
Yeah.
And of course, as in any government, if you go to war, the government's going to tax you more, and you get more money into the government. But in either case, that was his plan, and that was how we were introduced to Vizzini and Inigo and Fezzik.
Inigo, my favorite character. Like,
Oh yeah.
for sure. Like
Yeah.
that. Well, he also was very much subplot of the movie, right? So one is like the Princess Bride, and then the
Hmm.
second part is like his wanting to avenge the murder
Of his
of
father,
his father.
Domingo Montoya. Yeah.
But like as soon as that part of the movie when they're on the boat and you just see these characters interact, and as
Oh
a
yeah.
big WWF fan back in the day, and Andre the Giant, and seeing him, and like, well, I didn't even know Andre the Giant was part of the movie, and then seeing him, and I know his speaking, his English is not his first language, and having to do all that, like, just seemed like it was cool. Like that brought back some memories of just Andre the Giant being Andre the Giant as a wrestler, and then also seeing him acting in his movie, because I don't think he acted in a lot of movies. I mean, he might have done
I don't think
some, but not.
if anything, it wasn't a lot in America, but
I know, yeah. So anyway, that, like, it was cool when I saw him, and then um, played a big role in the movie. He was a
yeah.
main character in the movie.
I mean, the two of them, because Cassini, as important as his role was, he had a very small part in the movie, but significant as well. So we fast forward, the three of them, they kidnap the princess, and when they kidnap the princess, now they go onto the boat, and with that whole thing, now Inigo sees a boat following them. He thinks it's following them. Um, you really have to watch the movie to follow along with the stuff that we're talking about. But we go from the shrieking eels to the cliffs of insanity, and when they get to that point where they're at the cliffs, and Fezzik, it before we go any further, let me give a shout out to my friends Chaz and Kawi. They actually named their son Fezzik. So I mean, I claim this to be my favorite movie,
That's
but
different
I mean,
level.
like that's
Next.
totally
That's
next
next
level
level.
to name your son Fezzik. I remember when Chaz first named him Fezzik, he was like, "This is." I think he looked it up, and it was like, "There's only 1% on the planet that that somebody is named Fezzik." So of course, it's unique. Only people that have watched this movie would understand what we're talking about. But shout
There's
out to them, the Aranitas, Kawi and Chaz.
there's my friend's kid. They named Buttercup.
Oh,
No,
I tried to get Kawi and Chaz actually had a daughter. I tried to get them to name her
that
Buttercup. They named her Gwenny, but I mean,
yeah, that would be funny.
different story. Yeah.
Maybe the next dog that you guys get can be Buttercup.
Yep. So moving on to the clips of insanity. I mean, like this is where we really get into the character development. I mean, maybe in the beginning when they start talking about physics, ability to rhyme, and the banter between him and
I forgot about that.
I mean, between him and Inigo, they're obviously really close, and
And
Inigo's
that
trying
would
to
that's
inspire him to rhyme.
I was just gonna try and rhyme with something that you just said, but that was what I was talking about. Like with him, like his English language not being a strength for him, and then part of the movie is him being able to rhyme
Yep.
everything they said, even adds more to like this character, and you yeah, fall in love with him even more because it's just this sort of funny part
Stop
of
that rhyming now. I mean it. Anybody want a peanut? It's like I mean
it.
if you watch the movie, you'll get it. If you don't, you might not get it. But in either case, it was one of the things that made me fall in love with the movie. So
I
so
forgot
of
about the rhyming.
yeah, I mean the rhyming with Fezzik, and then he's like the method that they get up the cliffs of insanity. I mean, he's climbing up and he's got three people attached to him, and Vizzini is complaining about the fact that the masked man is catching up with them. It's like, well, that guy doesn't have anybody here. I'm carrying three people here.
Okay,
Yeah.
when they got to the top of the so Andre the Giant, his physics is climbing up. They get to the top, and then like one person climbs off, the other person. When I was watching that, and I don't know, did you not think that Vicini is just getting smashed? Like he was,
Yeah.
he
I
was
mean, he's
on
just
the
like,
he's on the front of.
I don't know how he could be pulling up the rope like this, and somebody's in front. It's like it's like you have one of those what are those things that they have with the kid, the carriers?
Oh, the baby Bjorn.
Yeah, Bjorn. Yeah, the Bjorn. So yeah, he has a Bjorn with the Vicini in front, and then he has Buttercup and Inigo on the sides of him. But in either case, I mean, yeah, the thing that I noticed the most when I rewatched this, I was like, I can't tell. Like, there's no blue screen. Like,
Oh,
you don't see.
how is
Yeah,
he? How is he actually?
like how they're showing it. I mean, obviously,
They have a crane.
yeah,
I'm
obviously
sure.
they got something going on, but
Yeah, I wonder how they filmed that. Yeah.
they're. I mean, like Star Wars, you can see like the cutouts and everything, but this one,
I couldn't tell.
What-
I couldn't tell how they did
did
it.
we say when this movie was done? Was this in
87.
87? 1987. I mean, technology wasn't the greatest yet,
But you couldn't tell.
but
That looked pretty good.
when I rewatched it the other night, I couldn't tell.
You know what? You know what else they maybe cannot tell? But I'll show them right now is that my beer is empty.
And mine is almost empty.
All right, so we are going to our next.
And Kawi and Chaz are blowing up my phone right now.
Oh, all right, Little Giant IPA. Yeah, Little Giant. Tokyo Ale Works, the little hop there. So this is 7%
Oh,
IPA. Oh, they gave us a little synopsis here. Columbus hops are overwhelmingly popular for their bitterness, but when it comes to aroma, most don't know how to handle them. In order to make Columbus a Little Giant, the DH was assembled with Columbus as the main hop and balanced with Mosaic and Simcoe to prevent its characteristics from becoming too strong. Aromas of dank orange and muscat with a good mouthfeel from the extra wheat malt ensures this beer can hold its own. Bro, that was almost a different language. That's probably not even understandable for a lot of people. Oh, and I didn't open that by the microphone, but enjoy the sound of that.
all I heard
Delicious
out of that
cold.
was Little Giants, and
That's what I'm saying. Like that
The
was
Little Giants was actually a
a
movie
good
in
movie.
1994.
That was a fun
Yeah.
movie.
Again, Rick Moranis.
Shout out to
Rick
shout out
Moranis
to Rick.
from Ghostbusters and
Strange Brew.
Strange
Hey.
Brew.
Okay, we.
Oh, it's really smooth.
All right, cheers.
There's a picture of a hop right in the middle there, just like on my shirt.
So makes me so happy.
In my pursuit of happiness, this is really helping.
All right, what do you think about this one before we get back to the movie? So not a hazy. It looks like an IPA.
Nope, but I'm gonna give it an 8.
Ooh.
I like it. I like it a lot.
It does have the bitters. They described it with being very bitter. All right, I will. I'm still gonna leave room for improvement from the cooler. Same 7. Keep it. Keep it at a 7 again.
Out of everything, I think that was my favorite that we've had so far tonight. So I give it an 8.
All right, very good.
And moving on with the movie. So after they move on to the cliffs and Santa, so the dueling scene is probably my favorite.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the favorite scene? I know as soon as I saw.
Between that and when Inigo finally meets up with
Count.
Count Rogan and has his duel with him. The duel with Wesley was and if you look up any of the behind the scenes, they actually did a lot of work. Carrie Ellis and Mandy Patinkin did a lot of work with a known swordsman to practice this duel that they had, and I think that to me that's probably my favorite scene.
So when I watched it, I was like, oh, this is a classic. And then they're going at it with each other, and then I hear them referencing the different styles
Yeah.
of fencing.
And it's actually legitimate
It was
fencing
Yeah.
techniques that they're talking about.
It was the first thing I did after I watched the movie was to look up the terms that they use, and are they real fencing terms? It's kind of like yeah, like they were going back like, I'm going to use this technique. It's like, well, they're playing mind games with each other. That would be good, because if you use that, then I would use this. And I actually, so here I was
Really?
chatting.
I'm not left-handed.
with
I'm not
ChatGPT,
left-handed either.
but they reference Capo Ferro,
Yep.
who was a real fencing master from the 17th century. His style focuses on attacking with precision. There was Thibault, another fencing master who used a scientific approach to sword fighting. And then Agrippa, known for simplifying complex sword maneuvers. And so, I mean, it was fun for them going back and forth. And,
They referenced all of those techniques, and I think it credits the person that was training them, because they took this scene very seriously. And between the two of them, Mandy Patinkin and Carrie Elwes, I think this was the best scene of the movie.
Yeah,
really.
for sure. And before they started fighting, when Inigo says, I'm going to let him rest, and this is not a challenge. I can beat anybody. In fact, I'm gonna do left-handed.
I'm gonna do it left-handed. Yeah.
And then when they switch, it says, I'm not really left-handed, and then Elvis says, I'm not really left-handed. Like, it was just it was a memorable scene, and like I enjoyed
But
it.
even I guess, I mean, if you don't mind me asking, do you have 6 fingers? It's like, do you start every conversation like this? I mean, like, hey,
So
he's searching for the person that killed his father. So Inigo, in his life pursuit, he had battled somebody that killed his father. He was 11 years old when this happened, but all he remembered was the person had 6 fingers on his right hand.
pretty easy trait.
Yeah, I mean, you don't think it's going to stand out until you see the person with 6 fingers on their right hand, and then it's very obvious. But it to him, that's his life pursuit. He's looking for the person that killed his father. He wants revenge, and this person that's just meeting him for the first time is like, this is an odd way to start a conversation. But
Okay, wait. This is horrible, but I have to say it. I think it's true. And my brother listens. So, hey, what's up, Chad? I believe my brother had a girlfriend that had 6 toes. I don't know if that was just something that we said. But speaking of 6 fingers, I probably
there's
shouldn't.
anything wrong with that. But
I'm not saying any names.
Yeah.
I did see my brother. So shout out to my brother. Confirm that with me later. But yeah, to know, like, it's not that uncommon to have people with extra digits. But anyway, that was for me.
yeah, moving on. It's I think it's unusual, but apparently it's not such an unusual thing. But
Toes was probably not as bad, but
Maybe,
like
yeah.
gloves,
Yeah.
like when you go skiing, if it's cold, you wear gloves.
I mean, like, you're looking at it, and it's like, that guy has 6 fingers.
Yeah, but having 6 toes is probably easier. Like that's not as bad. I was thinking like, but if you had 6 fingers,
Yeah. It's like, it just looked weird when he had it's like he had 5 fingers and then the thumb.
As soon as they showed it,
Yeah. But in either case, so obviously this person has been traveling with Prince Humperdinck the whole time. So this person's following him along. Oh, so in this duel, you find out that that's the person that Inigo is looking for. Later on in the movie, you find out that Lord Rogan is the one that has the 6 fingers. But so you have the duel with Inigo and Wesley, or Dread Pirate Roberts, and then moving along, Wesley beats him, and then now he has to face Fezzik. So Fezzik, being the strong arm that he is, he is the Brute Squad, and now Wesley has to beat him with his wits and use a little bit of jujitsu, chokes him out, and then moves along to Fazzini, where he does the Battle of Wits. And
Classic.
probably my second favorite scene of the movie, where
Scene that
where-
was that we referenced earlier.
I mean, the whole iocane powder thing, and Vizzini knowing that iocane powder, the origin is from Australia. I mean, there's so much within their conversation just about the Battle of Wits.
So in this section of the adventure, he has to outwit. So he knows that they're saying you're not going to pass Fazzini because he's so smart. You're not going to outwit him, and so he brings him with a challenge, and the challenge is to figure out. They have 2 drinks, and that he says that he poisons one, and then Fazzini has to figure out which one is poison. And they go back and forth, and it's Fazzini. You were referencing already some of the things that he says, like the steps to, like, oh, you think I would say this,
Yeah.
so it's got to be this, but then you would know this.
But you have studied, so you know that man is mortal. So you'd put the poison as far away from you as possible. I mean, the
That
Battle of
was
Wits.
so classic, yeah.
I don't know. That might. No, I think that's still the second best. But I mean,
But it's-
comparable to the scene with Wesley and Inigo and their banter between each other with each other. Fazzini, so overly arrogant and cocky that he's smarter than this person that's attacking him with the mask. But anyway, yeah. So we're at that point where Fazzini, the iocane powder. I mean, like, to me, that's a significant point. Iocane powder. If you have seen this movie and you love this movie, then you will know when someone mentions iocane powder, they're referencing this scene. And Fazzini, he recognizing that iocane powder is from, its origin is from Australia. Australia is where the thieves are from, so you can't trust anybody. And so the Battle of Wits, I would say that's my second favorite scene in the movie, is just them going back and forth. And it's really just Fazzini just talking in circles to try and get some kind of like a poker read out of Wesley.
So it is. I mean, part of this movie and what made it so popular is the dialogue and that scene and the back and forth and how well written and how well thought out. Like the wit goes back and forth and how it just adds, well, what about this and what about this and logic, and then also back to the fencing scene as well. Like just how well written and well researched and rehearsed.
Yeah.
All of that was. Like people maybe don't take into consideration or don't appreciate as much as how well written that is. And then even how the Battle of Wits, how it ends is it didn't matter like the wits
Yeah.
because
Because Wesley was developing immunity
he
to
just
iocane powder for the last 3 years.
just
So,
just
I mean,
just
yeah.
like how we're building up immunity to alcohol.
Exactly.
Like
I mean,
it was similar to this, where the
but
more
he basically put it in both of them, and it's like it doesn't matter what you do, we're both drinking this.
we're
I'm
both
gonna be
drinking.
good, you're not. So
not,
anyway,
not the same, but we'll still work on it. But he probably built up his tolerance in a similar way. You drink a little, then you drink a little more, then right. It's like snake venom.
yeah,
You your immunity to snake bites. They actually like the anecdote for
yeah,
snake bites is snake venom, or it's made from that because that's how you build up tolerance.
yeah.
Which is also why I don't get the flu very often because I ate dirt as a kid and just built up a lot of tolerance
And
around
and I
sicknesses.
personally stay away from snakes. But
True, just stay away from snakes to build up
yeah.
my tolerance.
So anyway, um, there was some research that I did on a few of the characters. So Vizzini, he is actually Wallace Shawn, and Wallace Shawn was in a few movies that I
His
can remember.
his voice is so familiar, right?
Well, so Wallace Shawn was in Clueless. He was one of the teachers. He was the teacher that Cher tried to get to hook up
That's
with
right.
another
That's
teacher.
right. Okay.
So Clueless was in 1995, so a movie in the 90s, and then a little bit later in 1997, he was also in Vegas Vacation, which I'm not sure if you remember,
Oh,
but
I don't
he was the
remember even
dealer when Clark Griswold was trying to play like war, and he was trying to play games that he thought was like AC Ducey kind of stuff, and he thought he could beat him, and Wallace Shawn was the dealer, and he just beat him every time. So yeah, Wallace Shawn in the '80s not so big, but in the '90s he was in a few movies. Cary Elwes, who played Wesley, he he actually he spanned across several decades actually. So in 1993, a movie that we talked about before, Men in Tights. So Robin Hood, Men in Tights, he was Robin Hood. And it was funny because in that movie, he references that he's the only person that's ever played Robin Hood that actually has a British accent. But later in 1996, he was in Twister. Kind of a dick.
I just watched Twister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so Bill Paxton was the main character, and Cary Elwes was the person that stole his idea with Dorothy, with the
Yeah.
so
Never,
yeah. So Cary Elwes, yeah.
didn't watch the whole movie, watched Princess Bride, and still never made
They made the connection.
We
Yeah.
just because of the new movie Twisters, and then Twister the 1990
Yeah.
that movie came up, so we watched it at home. Yeah, even after watching the whole thing, I didn't make that connection.
So Cary Elwes was also in Saw in 2004. He was the guy that ended up trying to cut his leg off at the end. So he was in the original Saw, and then he was
Very
also,
disturbing movie.
Very disturbing movie.
Very disturbing.
But just to show his span across decades, he was also in a movie more recently in 2023 called Operation Fortune, which was a Guy Ritchie movie with Jason Statham and Aubrey Plaza. So 2023, he's still relevant.
Okay, before we move on, since we're talking about Elvis, I want to mention you shared that you did a screening of The Princess Bride
So
at Hawaii Theater. Tell me a little bit
They
about that.
had so my friend Mark and I went to this screening at the Hawaii Theater where they did it was I think they called it like an inconceivable evening with Cary Elwes. But basically they did a viewing of The Princess Bride
About
at the
what
Hawaii
year?
Theater.
About what year?
Oh, this was like 2 years ago. This
Recently.
was probably like, yeah, this was like 2021 or 2022. So he was here with his family, and he was there at the Hawaii Theater. We watched the movie, and after the movie, he did like a Q&A. And from what I heard, he had been doing this across the nation.
Did you get to ask any questions?
I, I didn't get to ask any questions, but a lot of the questions that were asked was probably what I would have asked.
So like what would you have asked, or what was like one question that was asked? Can you remember?
People ask the questions like, what was it like filming? Honestly, I think this was Carrie Elwes's breakout movie. So for him, I mean, he had this whole again decades of films that he's done after this.
Right.
But Men in Tights was probably like one of his more popular ones, and Twister. But he had done a lot afterwards, and the fact that this was his first movie, I think probably just the experience working with Andre the Giant, working with people like Mandy Patinkin, who also probably hadn't had too much fame before this.
Yeah.
I mean, Billy Crystal was probably like the biggest, and he had like a really small role.
When I saw he was on the cast, and then I was waiting in the movie, like when is Billy Crystal going to be in it? When is he going to be? He didn't come on till later.
Billy Crystal and his wife in the movie, Carol Kane, were probably like the two biggest names in the movie, and they had less than 5 minutes of airtime in the movie.
So I also read that Elwes wrote a book with collaboration from like all the actors. Do you know what the book is called? I think it's a classic. It's a classic name. Do you know what it is? I did look it up.
I think it had to do with The Princess Bride. So I mean, it was
So some terms from.
Yeah.
So what are some favorite quotes from the movie?
Inconceivable.
Inconceivable.
So an Inconceivable Evening with Carrie Elwes was, I think, the night that I went.
Okay.
So that was the name of the event that I went to go see. And
let's see.
Unfortunately, it was just him, but Carrie Elwes had a love for Hawaii, so he was already bringing his family over here. And so when he came to do that event that I went to go see at the Hawaii Theater, it was something that
had more meaning.
He was already here with his family.
Yeah. Oh,
and
easy.
This
Cool.
was this was just like an add-on for him.
So his book is As You Wish: Inconceivable Tales from the Making of the Princess Bride. And it's all behind the scenes. Talk to everybody from the movie. What I read was the only person who he was not able to talk to was Andre the Giant, because he had already passed when he decided to write the book.
Which he has probably like one of the biggest stories. So behind the scenes, there was a story about Andre the Giant passing gas, and this thing had lasted for like minutes to the point where he just apologized afterwards. But I mean, you can just imagine this person that's obviously bigger than everybody. I mean, to call him a giant in a fairy tale is one thing, but to see him standing amongst other people, probably looking like a giant in real life. I mean, and then that giant passing gas. I mean, it's a.
So his tolerance. Speaking of tolerance for alcohol, was supposed to be like legendary, more than I've heard from about anyone. And there's also a documentary about Andre the Giant. Which I watched it a few years ago, or I don't know how long ago it came out. But highly recommend it. I mean, like if this movie interests you and his character interests you, go watch the documentary on Andre the Giant. They do talk about like his ability to drink alcohol, and the article that I read, it said a little bit about his meals. It was like six regular meals with like 12 bottles of wine, and he was just getting started or something like that. Something really ridiculous.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's Andre the Giant. So we have Robin Wright or Robin Wright Penn. You may recognize her from Forrest Gump. She was Jenny. She was in a few other movies, but
she's Buttercup.
She's Buttercup. Yeah.
Buttercup was Jenny.
From Forrest Gump.
Oh.
So I mean, like some of these things, you don't really put the two and two together, but I mean, when I did my research, I was trying to look for the thing that stood out the most for me. She was in several other movies, but yeah, that was definitely the one that stood out for me, was the fact that she was Jenny in Forrest Gump.
We talked a little bit about Forrest Gump in a previous episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean she was very attractive. I mean, played this, princess and supposed to be a very attractive. I guess even in Forrest Gump, she played like the girlfriend, the love interest. Yeah, I'm gonna have to might have to do Forrest Gump. I'm gonna have to go watch a little bit about Forrest Gump again, see Jenny. Now, all right. This is our last beer that we have here. This is a Cosmic Fusion IPA. It is another 7% IPA, not a hazy. Fusing together the greatness of Columbus and Comet, we've created a cosmic level of hoppiness in this IPA. Traditional grapefruit and pininess combined with a big nose of sweet citrus fruit and spice bring a flavor that is out of this world. All right, we'll see. We'll see how the fusion is. IPA. I missed the opening again. There's the pouring.
So getting back to other people that have acted in this movie. So Mandy Patinkin, he played the character of Inigo Montoya.
My favorite.
A lot of people's favorite. And Mandy Patinkin, I don't know if you did research on this, but he was one of the main characters in Alien Nation.
No.
He played opposite James Caan in Alien Nation. He was the alien partner of James Caan in Alien Nation. So that was 1988. Potentially another movie that we're gonna do. He was also in a few series that actually went on for several seasons. One was Dead Like Me. I love Dead Like Me. He was like the they were like Grim Reapers, and he was like their boss, and they basically had to go out and either tell people that they've died and they need to move on, or explain to people the situation. So he was like the head of the Grim Reapers, and they had their own group. So Dead Like Me. He was also in a more recent series called Homeland.
Okay.
With Claire Danes, and he's also my daughter loves this show, Criminal Minds. He's
what is he in Criminal? He's part of the team?
He's one of the main characters in Criminal Minds. And if you ask her, she'll know. I don't know so much.
See, in my head, because of his character in The Princess Bride, he reminds me of Antonio Banderas. Like, it's just like what we hear.
He's a much younger version of himself.
Right? He could be Puss in Boots and all that. But in Criminal Minds, I don't picture Antonio Banderas. I got to think like which. now I gotta go watch Criminal Minds again to see. So his portrayal is sort of like with the accent and everything that he plays is not so much like Antonio Banderas, or is it? Or is
No.
his character all in Criminal Minds also with an accent and
In Criminal Minds, he plays the character Jason.
oh, I just
He- I honestly I don't watch Criminal Minds, so I don't know. My daughter would kill me for this.
but not the same. But that it's so many
Yeah.
years later. I mean, this is
Oh,
from,
yeah,
from
and
the
the- and the
80s.
shows
Criminal
that- yeah.
Minds is like there's it'd be understandable that they're unrecognizable. It's
Yeah.
inconceivable that they'd look the same.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking inconceivable. It reminded me of like when we're talking about Strange Brew and talking about plausible. And
Plausible, yeah.
yeah, we could have been using like inconceivable. It's like Rick Moranis is in the bat all filled with beer. It's like inconceivable. There's so many dogs flying. Inconceivable. we could have combined the two from back then.
So where did we leave off? The
Well,
Battle of Wits.
So yeah, Billy Crystal. We thought we brought in Billy Crystal, right? So there's this whole part where they're fighting. How did they
So
halfway kill?
after they get to the Battle of Wits, then they get to the part with the fire swamp. And the fire swamp is like a whole nother adventure. This is mostly between Wesley and Buttercup. They
Getting
go through all of these different
the ROUS.
ROUSs and the
What is a
lightning-
ROUS for?
ROUSs are rodents of unusual size, and
You could totally tell
Yeah.
that there were humans
Yeah.
in those things. That
Yeah.
was funny, but they're of
It was
unusual
definitely,
size.
Jim Henson.
Yeah,
Jim
and then
Henson.
I watched the credits after, and it said like characters or people that.
Oh,
played
there
the
was
role
actual
in-
people in there.
Yeah,
And they had the lightning sand and the fire
the-
spurts,
yeah.
the one that would click and then the fire would come out, and the lightning, the lightning sand was pretty crazy. But RUS is probably doesn't exist, but
capybaras,
Yeah.
like rabid capybaras.
But after they get through this whole thing with the fire swamp, then they come out on the other end, and on the other end they encounter Humperdinck with Rogan and like a few other people, and they have the guys, the snipers with the crossbows, and this is why Buttercup says, "If you let him go, I'll marry you," and so they get to the point where now we're at the point where Wesley realizes that Rogan is the six-fingered man, and then they get to the Pit of Despair. Pit of Despair is where they encounter the albino, which
Looks
Yeah.
like Brendan Fraser to me. It's not Brendan Fraser,
that
right?
albino, his
That
real name is Mel Smith,
looks like Brendan Fraser, in the movie.
and
like fat Brendan Fraser.
Charlie and I have encountered Mel Smith post his acting career. He is now running bingo at the Plaza in Las Vegas.
Go check it out.
Go check it out. You'll see. That's where the albino is. But moving along now, I think Inigo, Bezic, and they break out Wesley. They try and bring him back. That's when they encounter Miracle Max. So Miracle Max is where we get into Billy Crystal and Carol Kane and their characters. Very brief, but again, Billy Crystal is probably the biggest name on this whole cast
At the time,
at the time.
and
Probably still, yeah. And and then that we kind of get to the point where my third favorite scene, which is where Inigo finally meets up with Rogan and gets to give his famous line, "My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." I actually have a T-shirt that has, "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." But I mean, that I think that's probably the most famous line from this movie, more famous than "As You
As You
Wish"
Wish and
and
Inconceivable.
"Inconceivable." "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." And it's just that brings up the whole revenge part of the story.
So when they like not in that scene, but in this whole part where Elvis is dead, and then they bring him back to
Mostly
life.
dead.
He's mostly dead.
Mostly dead.
Mostly dead.
Yeah.
And then Billy Crystal brings him back to life. So as they're making their way like through everything, it reminded me of Weekend at Bernie's because he's mostly dead, but they have to put him like in a wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
And like taking him all over, and then he's in the bed and he can't move, and like that kind of reminded me. I was just thinking like, oh, there's a Weekend at Bernie's reference, and then I looked it up, and Weekend at Bernie's is also in the 80s. Might be something that we watch down the road. But yeah, that when they were kind of pushing him around, that just kind of reminded me of that.
Who is in that?
Weekend.
Andrew McCarthy.
Yeah, I was gonna say if it was Bateman,
No,
if it was Bateman, that would have been
trust
full
me,
circle.
the last hour I've been trying to think of what else Jason Bateman's been in. But Andrew McCarthy probably, I mean, got his fame from St. Elmo's Fire, and he was part of that whole Brat Pack kind of. But yeah, we'll get to that. I'm sure we'll get to Weekend at Bernie's and.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we haven't talked about, we did talk about Fred Savage and bringing it back, but I know like one of my favorite things from this movie is how they kept bringing it back to Fred Savage and that character and the grandfather telling the story and how it went from, oh, you're gonna tell me this story, to the kid being like so interested, and then him even predicting like, no, this can't happen, like that's not good storytelling, and just how they weave that in. I would be interested in reading the original book to see if it was a story about a grandfather reading a book to a kid, or if they almost weaved
If that was
in,
just the story.
if they weaved it in that the grandfather is reading, this book that was written before, like that. I'd be interested to see that. But I did like how they kept bringing it back to Fred Savage and just his little lines and the little things and how he was interested. You see him eating his peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And by the end, he's like, hey, Grandpa, can you come and read that to me again tomorrow?
So being that this was like the 50th time I've seen this movie.
How many times, like realistically, how many times do you think you've seen it?
Probably 50.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say, knowing that I've seen it this many times, watching it this time around, I paid very close attention to all the things that was going on in his room. Aside from the fact that he was wearing the Bears jersey, so he's probably like a Bear. So they're probably in Chicago.
80s, 85, right?
Yeah.
The refrigerator.
There was something about the fridge in his room also, so it was like an homage to.
Yeah, I saw a refrigerator parody on there.
He also was playing a game called Hardball.
ColecoVision.
I had that game. I might have had it for like my Commodore 64.
No, Commodore 64.
So C64, Hardball. I remember everything from the music that was in that to the graphics. Very pixelated, but I mean, back then it was
Like
it was
yeah.
it was like high tech
In the
for us back
80s,
then. In the 80s, yeah.
you see like Atari, which is not that much before, had like stick figures, block little things going tick, 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 tick,
Yeah.
and then this was legit
This was
baseball
very-
game.
yeah.
It was one of those games that just it kind of changed.
This was like
gaming
Halo
for
for
sports,
the 80s.
for sports
Yeah.
for sports games.
And the fact that they had the players' names and everything. I remember like Whitey Herzog. I mean, there was just they just had I totally so seeing this back then and even now, I remember owning Hardball, the game.
I'm pretty sure I
And
did.
this is what
Out of Commodore 60.
this is what the 80s looked like,
Yeah.
and this is what the graphics looked like back then. So for the, I mean, you're talking about what else was in his room. I thought it was unusual that he had like a picture of somebody that was not really snowboarding, but it was a picture of somebody that was, what is that? When they have the, I want to say sailboard, but it's not sailboarding. It's like I can picture it. He's basically on a surfboard with a sail.
Oh,
I just can't think of what it's called.
that's good enough.
I mean,
good enough description. I don't know.
that was
either.
what-
Yeah.
He had
From
I
back
was trying to
then,
look
you think?
around at what he had.
They call it wind
When-
sailing? No, not windsurfing.
Windsurfing,
Windsurfing.
Terrible. We're in Hawaii and we can't think of it.
So he had a picture of a windsurfer.
He had a picture of a windsurfer.
That must have been
The fact that he was in
so
probably in
advanced,
Chicago.
right.
I don't know why he had that. I mean, I was just looking for things that he had in the room. Why did he have that? Obviously, he was a Bears fan.
But I mean that is the first thing I noticed. He's wearing a
Yeah.
bear shirt and then the poster of Refrigerator Perry. So he is in Chicago and that, and they won Super Bowl. I think it was 85 that they won the Super Bowl. So it makes sense that in 87, this is, you add a little bit of Chicago in there. And it's like people are fans. They wouldn't do Atlanta Falcons. Not
Especially after this past weekend.
This past weekend.
Yeah.
I was thinking if they won that we could wear Atlanta gear and be like, all
I
right,
was ready.
go Falcons, like let's go. And
I was ready, but
Sorry.
apparently we still haven't fixed our O-line
No.
problems.
no.
So
we'll end it. We'll end the talk about the Falcons there. When you see us with Falcons clothes on,
we
then
might
you,
have won.
then
that.
you know that we might have won a game.
So I mean, that's just like what I said. I think in the last episode, we're probably not going to talk about the Falcons for the first few weeks of the season.
We'll see.
Although I am wearing a Falcons hat,
I mean backward. You
Yeah.
got
but it's backward.
okay.
Yeah,
I got
backwards
Falcons.
for a reason.
I got Falcon socks on, but that's
So I mean, like I said, my third favorite part of the movie, when Inigo finally gets his revenge with Rogan, and then moving on to the end of the movie, it's basically, I mean, for me, the only thing that I think I would have liked to have seen is maybe if he really is the new Dread Pirate Roberts, his new crew coming in and helping them overthrow the kingdom. But I mean,
just
for the
showing
sake
that,
of the
yeah.
story, yeah. I mean,
You can
I'm
just assume
looking-
it.
right,
Assume
yeah.
it.
Yeah. You'd assume because they were trying to get back to his boat.
Right.
That was the whole thing. Was He's like, I have a boat that they're waiting for us, and if we can get back to them, we're good. And then they get stuck in the firestorm. So
All right. Now, George, we are out of beer, and that brings us to the ending of our talk. But we have to talk a little bit before we close out. We have to let the people know what we're watching next. And I know we haven't really decided. We talked about maybe North Shore. Nothing else really came up in this episode that stood out. Should we do North Shore as our next watch? I know, again, a couple of shout outs to people. We did get an email from Cousin Keith requesting North Shore. If you guys have movies that you want us to review, we got 2 reviews. Daniel, what's up, Daniel, from sent us Princess Bride, and we did Princess Bride. And then Keith sent us North Shore. So I think we have to. I mean, that's it's what we got.
I'm all for us doing North Shore. I don't predict a lot of good things for me to see, but
no,
I will have a lot to say.
Good. We got a lot of memory. We got a lot of. There's a lot of quotes and a lot of lines from that. Now,
Arizona.
People have been asking us to also mention, like, where can you watch this, and is it available? And unfortunately, I did look at North Shore and where I would be able to watch it, and it's not available on any of the major streaming services. So you won't be able to watch it if you have Netflix or Prime or even Disney or even HBO. You might have to rent this one. It's also a good chance that you haven't watched any of the ones that we've said so far. It might just be one that you've watched in the past. But hopefully, maybe you even have a DVD or a cassette at your house. Man, if you are going to watch North Shore and you put in a cassette, that would make me so. If I had a cassette and I could actually watch North Shore.
I don't even have a DVD player anymore.
I have a VHS player.
You have a VHS. That's awesome.
At my house.
I have VHS.
And I have a DVD
tapes.
player.
I have the. I just don't have the player. But.
I just threw. Well, you can come over to my house, and I got a couple of VHS players. I think they still work. They worked the last time we plugged them in. But that would be so cool if you actually had a VHS of North Shore. DVD would even be like, you probably don't have a DVD.
If you have a picture with somebody that was in North Shore.
Yeah, we talked last time about George.
My experience.
The hitchhiker.
With Rocky hitchhiking. And
if we had cell phones back in the day, you'd probably have a picture with him.
Back then, it'd
be great to show.
Nia Peoples was in this movie.
What other movie? Okay, so what other movie was Nia Peoples in? I just heard about a movie that she was in, and I was like, wow, that's a really popular movie.
She was in a movie called Leviathan, I think.
I saw that.
And
well, we'll definitely have this information next time. But offhand, I can't remember. But somebody just said something and said, Nia Peoples was in that, and I remember. She was I guess was in
pretty big.
Some
coming from Hawaii.
Was she from Hawaii?
I believe she was.
I thought her relationship from Hawaii was just that she was in North Shore. I didn't know she was actually from Hawaii.
I think she was from Hawaii, similar to Tia Carrera.
Yeah.
And
Pussycat Dolls.
Nicole Scherzinger.
Scherzinger.
Yeah.
She was just on the Jimmy Fallon.
Shout out to Nick Lenchenko. That's her cousin. Also a co-worker of mine. So,
but I just saw on social media, she sang, or she was on the Jimmy Fallon. It's like a game show. They do like Wheel of Impersonations, or
Haley and I just started watching that recently. So,
but she sang. It was, they were just like, wow, she's like so like underrated with her voice and like how she was in the Pussycat Dolls. And even currently, like she's just underrated as a singer. She sounded really good on that. So, what's my jam? Or yeah, I think that's the name. So go check her out. Go check out Nicole. Nicole, if you're watching, say hello to us too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me take my last sip here.
Next movie, North Shore.
Check it out. You might have to rent it. You might have the VHS, maybe a DVD.
You might want to just drive down to the North Shore.
Maybe just drop down.
Similar experience.
All right. Cheers, everyone. Episode 4 in the books.
Thank you.